Taking a look at real-world examples of close reading, the following video is going to show an example of close reading in which a teacher is going to use Common Core literacy reading strategies with an informational text. His lesson is designed to help students see the connections between the important details and the main idea of the article.
Cambridge, would you mind reading our first learning target today?
I can get the gist and determine the main idea. In a newspaper article about...
The text I chose for today's class was an article from the Buffalo News about a Seneca school called Faith Keepers that teaches a lot about Seneca language and culture. Look at some of the important words in there. What's an important word in this learning target? Go ahead, Janira.
Seneca.
This Seneca. Right now, the fifth graders are studying the idea of culture through various case studies. Mainly, they're focusing in on indigenous Native American peoples of Western New York. What's another important word that we're looking at, Mr. Steppa?
Main idea.
Main idea. What is that big idea that's really important to the author? And an assessment that given my students recently, I would notice that they weren't picking out really important details, especially as they relate to the main idea. So this lesson was really designed to help kids to see the connection between important details and main idea. What's another important word that we're looking at, Christian?
Gist.
Gist. What is the gist? I'm asking you to jot the gist in the margin. What are you writing about?
The important parts of the story or article.
Yeah, or what it's about, right? Today we're going to be starting a close read of a brand new text. I want you to think about all the close reading we've done before. We do a close reading process in my classroom, and it's often a multi-day process. And the first time kids read, they're reading just to get the flow of the text from the beginning to the end. This is sort of a low stakes moment in reading. I want you just to read for the flow, all right? Show some perseverance. The second time they go back to the text, they're annotating it in several different ways in order to help them understand it. Circling important words and jotting the gist in the margins. If you're having a hard time, if this text feels really difficult to you, what is something you can do as a reader to help you to get through it and to make it a little more manageable?
Get the gist in baby steps.
Get the gist in baby steps. Take bite-sized sections, little paragraphs, right? Do I understand this paragraph? Do I understand this paragraph? And go through section by section.
I started reading the article by reading the whole thing just for the flow.
I used to do a lot more scaffolding and pre-reading activities before I let kids have a turn with the text. Something I've noticed about my students is that now that they're used to reading a text on their own for the first time and trying it out, they've shown a lot more perseverance.
And then I read it again, underlined all the important words, like traditional, school, and some of the names.
Choosing a text is always a really important process for me in teaching something like this. I was really looking for something that was an authentic text, something from a primary source, like a newspaper article, something within what they were studying so that it had a real purpose for them in reading it. And I needed something that was complex, something that pushed them, something that taught them new vocabulary, new academic vocabulary.
After every section I read, I wrote the gist down. And I went back in the paragraph to see if I was right, and then I went to the next one.
I gave my whole class the same complex text. And one reason for this is that we found differentiation is less about text complexity and more about the amount of text a student is asked to work with. For some students, they're able to differentiate for themselves by chunking the text into smaller pieces.
I'm doing the gist for 2 paragraphs at a time. Demon Dowdy and his wife, Sandy, started the Seneca faith keepers.
For other students, we actually break the text up for them so that they only see a smaller amount of text at a time and don't become overwhelmed by the idea of what they're about to read. So look back at the title, look at some of those important details you underlined, look at the gist you wrote. I want you to jot your idea for this. What do you think the main idea of this article is? And then in about 2 minutes, we're going to transition ourselves over to the carpet area to continue the second half of our lesson. We read about it, we thought about it, we wrote about it, now we get a chance to talk about it. Jada, do you mind reading our second learning target for today?
I should explain the connection between details and the main idea in an article about the cynical.
You're going to choose one person near you, and you're talking about what do you think the main idea of this article is? And then what is one thing in the article, one little sentence that helped you come up with that main idea? So in the activity today, I really wanted students to build a connection between important details and the main idea. The Seneca culture is dying, so they started a school to learn the culture. So I chose the details I wanted them to work with and hung them in charts around the classroom. And students moved around in groups with Post-it notes, read the detail, and had to make a case for whether or not that detail was important and connected to the main idea. Working with complex text can be really challenging, and these kids are 10 years old, so they get really antsy. So I try to design my lessons in ways that give them time to get up and move around the room.
That's because it's like your mom sees something and she speaks the language and they won't be able to understand it. Because it's just part of their culture, right?
I try to get kids talking to each other about text as much as possible, and it allows them to understand parts of text that maybe they didn't understand on their own, but can get from up here. I want to debrief with this question. What detail did you think was important? How did it connect to the main idea?
The one about the children learn about traditional songs. One of the details I thought was important on the wall was that some of the traditions are like, for the Seneca people, are like singing and dancing. I thought that was an important detail because it like tells you the tradition.
99% of Senecans don't know how to speak Seneca language because that's about how their culture is dying because none of them really know how to speak their own language.
Yeah, so that one really goes back to that first part of the main idea that we said, right? The Seneca culture is dying. I use a close reading protocol because it gives the kids predictability in how they approach a text, and they've shown themselves to be much more willing to deal with the challenge. All right, let's do one more. What's a detail? Mr. Suppa.
Idea of attending school is a major commitment for the young people.
This next video is also an example of close reading being used in the classroom. It will be a 5th grade teacher using close reading in a small group lesson.
General Washington never said very much. He was tall with a quiet voice. He looked like the kind of man who could win a war. What kind of a person is she that she would think that somebody who is quiet and tall could win a war? My name is Meg Smith, and I am a 5th grade teacher at the University of Hartford Magnet School. I've taught here for the past 5 years. This year, my class has 17 students in it. I have 8 girls and 9 boys. They're from a variety of areas, suburban and urban. I have students from Hartford. I have a good number this year from New Britain. And I have a variety of students with different needs and different interests. The unit that we're working on in Reading Workshop is Unit 4. It is nonfiction research projects, and that kind of picks up off of Unit 3, which is nonfiction, and we're just having the kids dive into it and really pick an area of interest and examine different sources, put it together to really research and think deeply about their topic. And then they're going to produce an essay during their writing time because they're working on argumentative essays.
She probably knows because she's quiet, and so she can keep secrets. So she can probably tell that who can keep secrets or not by their facial expression.
Close reading is really having students look deeply into the text beyond the words and really having them ask themselves, what is the author trying to have me understand, and what does that mean, and why it's important. And it really just has the students internalize the text and understand it on a deeper level. The Common Core standards are extremely rigorous, and they really ask the kids to go to a much higher level. I've been teaching 5th grade for 11 years, and I'm asking more of my students than I ever have, because the Common Core really wants students to analyze text and also be able to talk about text and internalize it, pull from multiple sources, really analyze primary sources, secondary sources, and consider the importance of those sources as well as the importance of the words and what they mean to the student. And why is that, based on what you know about the African American experience in that time?
Because they thought that black men weren't as good as the white men, and that they didn't deserve as much as they did.
To prepare the students for close reading, I really have them think about the text, give them questions ahead of time, and I have to kind of lay it out for them before they can really internalize those questions, because the idea is to have them do it automatically, but before you can do that, you have to model it. You have to give them the questions to ask. I also want to give it to them in a variety of ways, written, verbal, having them take their own notes and looking at the notes and seeing which way they, what types of questions they really look at, and maybe seeing what questions they aren't asking. To see what they're missing, and also listening to their conversations. So what does that say about the mothers if the baby is not getting attention?
They're too busy internet work.
I also like to use pictures a lot, because it kind of levels the playing field. Because students who are not reading at the same level as others, they can have a basis for comparison, and it lends itself very nicely to beginning the act of close reading. What I want you to do is I want you to spread these words out. We're going to take a look at some important words that I pulled from story about Benedict Arnold here. Okay, so some of these words I think you're going to know, and some of these are going to be unknown words to us. Okay, so that's kind of that second question about really looking at the words and seeing how the words are important. So we've got foolhardy, impertinence, unrepentant, glory, pride, ambition, and blasphemous. Now, which ones do we know? One of the things that went well today in a close reading small group was when I pulled vocabulary words for the students and to get them to kind of discuss and go into the text and really think about how the words identified with the character that they're reading about, Benedict Arnold. They were really able to find a specific piece of text evidence and link that to a word. And my hope is that's really going to get them to identifying theme. Because if they're noticing these words and noticing a pattern of the words, they're going to notice a pattern and the character, and then they're going to be able to apply that to theme and really understand what drove Benedict Arnold to do what he did.
What's different about these two is that this one makes the war and the army sound good because you're going to get paid and that you have food and everything. And they say that you can have land, but in this one it seems like this boy doesn't really want to go at all.
In this small group right now, I really want them next to become a little bit more independent. I want to pull back as a facilitator, and I want them to start to facilitate a little bit more. Once they see me model and they kind of get the hang of it, I want to kind of pass the mic and allow them to take control of the group and to talk about what they've noticed and then ask questions of each other. When I am looking at my students and we're in a small group, I try to really get excited about what they're saying, and my eyes light up because they get excited by me being excited, quite frankly, and I want them to know that what they're doing is important, and I want them to feel like they're historians and they're pulling out facts for the first time, and that this is something that will light them up because it lights me up, and they also think that they're on the right track, so that's going to continue them versus having them pull back, which is not what I want them to do.
This is a one-page fiction reading that's used in a second and third grade classroom as practice for close reading. At the end of the passage, it also has questions that can be used with any story, and this is a text example of close reading. Close reading. Incorporating close reading strategies prepares students for a range of skills. Regarding formative performance tasks, prepares students for fluency, reading comprehension, vocabulary, writing, and regarding diagnostic tools, close reading prepares students for word level reading, foundational skills, independent reading levels, and shared research projects. In close reading, student responses to text-dependent questions are the primary source of evidence that teachers use to gauge how students are engaging with the text and the degree to which they are accomplishing the reading goals.
What should parents know about close reading? It is important for parents to understand the impacts of using close reading in the classroom. Positive impacts of close reading. Through close reading, students are able to read increasingly complex text independently. Through close reading, students can accomplish some major goals of the English language arts and literary Common Core state standards, specifically in the areas of key ideas and details, craft and structure, and integration of knowledge and ideas. A significant amount of research links close reading to significant gains in reading proficiency and finds close reading to be a key component of college and career readiness. It is important for parents to understand what closed reading is and why it is being utilized in the classroom as a tool for reading. A great way to introduce close reading to parents would be to explain the topic at an open house or a curriculum night at the beginning of the school year. A great way to do this would be to show a short informational video explaining exactly what close reading is and what their child or children will learn from utilizing close reading in the classroom. The video below is an example of an informational video that can be utilized during an open house or curriculum night. These are some examples of questions that a teacher would send home to support parents in implementing close reading at home. It helps them understand what types of questions should be asked during a first read, second read, and third read. For example, to help them out for a first reading to determine what the text says, they could ask questions such as, what is the text about? Or what was the character like and what did they do in the story? A second read is to figure out how the text works. So asking questions such as, who is telling this part of the story? Or what is the author's purpose for this section? And for a third reading, to analyze and compare the text, parents can ask questions such as, what information do these illustrations add to the text? Or how does this picture differ from what the author wrote? And what reasons does the author give to support an idea from the story? These are some examples of handouts that would be beneficial to send home to parents to give them more information on close reading and how to incorporate close reading into reading time at home. The first handout on the left gives parents an idea of strategies to use to support close reading, such as close readers do things like get the gist of what the text is about, use the text to answer questions, talk with each other about what you think it means, read again to summarize or answer specific questions. The second handout on the right gives parents a list of thought-provoking questions they can ask their child when reading at home to support a deeper understanding of a text. Some questions might include, is the author trying to persuade, inform, or entertain the reader? What background knowledge do you have that readers do this? And also, what questions do you have about what you read? This handout is another great resource to give out to parents. It explains some important aspects of close reading, such as choosing books that are an appropriate reading level for their child, how reading can become a part of family time, how to read with a beginning reader, and the importance of checking for understanding of a text. This handout also gives examples of resources that parents can use at home to support reading, such as online books and websites. All of the handouts shown in this presentation are available for use and are free and are listed on the references page if you're interested in using them.